The stars stretched endlessly in all directions as Commander Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Defiance. His eyes moved across the view screen, watching the swirling colors of the Orion Nebula fade behind them. They had been traveling for 6 months now, farther from Earth than any human had ever gone before. "Commander, we're picking up something strange on the sensors," said Lisa Parker, the ship's chief science officer. She was a tall woman with brown hair tied back in a simple ponytail. Her fingers moved quickly over the control panel as she studied the readings. Jake walked over to her station and looked at the data flowing across the screen. "What kind of strange?" "Energy readings that don't match anything in our databases. The signals are coming from a planet about 2 light years ahead of us." Lisa's voice carried excitement mixed with concern. "The energy patterns are too regular to be natural." Tyler Johnson, the navigation officer, turned in his chair. "Should we change course to investigate, sir?" Jake thought for a moment. Their mission was to explore this region of space and look for signs of alien life. So far, they had found nothing but empty star systems and dead worlds. This could be their first real discovery. "Set course for the planet," Jake ordered. "But keep our shields up and weapons ready. We don't know what we're walking into." The crew of the Defiance had been selected from the best officers in the Earth Space Navy. Besides Jake, Lisa, and Tyler, there was Maya Rodriguez, the communications specialist, and 23 other crew members. They had trained together for 2 years before this mission, but none of them had expected to find anything like this. 3 days later, they arrived at the planet. It was a brown and gray world with no signs of life on the surface. The atmosphere was thin and filled with dust storms that raged across empty continents. But the energy readings were stronger now, coming from deep underground. "It looks dead," Maya said as she studied the surface scans. "No plants, no animals, no cities. Just rocks and dust. But something down there is producing a lot of power," Lisa added. "The energy source is about 5 kilometers below the surface. It's been running for a very long time." Jake stared at the planet on the main screen. "How long?" "Based on the decay patterns in the readings, I'd say at least several thousand years. Maybe much longer." The commander made his decision. "Prepare a landing party. Lisa, Tyler, Maya, and I will go down first. The rest of the crew will stay here and monitor our position." 2 hours later, their shuttle touched down on the planet's surface. The ground was hard and cracked, covered with a thin layer of red dust. Strange rock formations jutted up from the landscape like broken teeth. The air was breathable, but thin, forcing them to wear breathing masks. "The energy source is directly below us," Lisa said, checking her scanner. "I'm detecting a large hollow space about 50 meters down." They found an entrance hidden behind a cluster of rocks. It was a smooth tunnel that sloped downward into darkness. The walls were made of some kind of metal that reflected their flashlight beams. "This is definitely artificial," Tyler whispered as they walked deeper into the tunnel. "Someone built this." The tunnel opened into a vast underground chamber. There, lights revealed huge machines that filled the space from floor to ceiling. The machines hummed with power, their surfaces covered in symbols that none of them recognized. "These are incredible," Lisa breathed, moving closer to examine one of the devices. "The technology is far more advanced than anything we have on Earth." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. "How advanced?" "Centuries ahead of us, maybe thousands of years." Lisa ran her scanner over the nearest machine. "These power sources should have burned out long ago, but they're still running perfectly." As they explored deeper into the facility, they found more chambers filled with strange equipment. Some rooms contained what looked like computer terminals, while others held devices whose purpose they couldn't even guess. It was Maya who made the first shocking discovery. She was examining a wall covered in symbols when she noticed something familiar mixed in with the alien writing. "Commander, you need to see this," she called out. Jake hurried over to where she was standing. Maya pointed to a section of the wall where human letters were carved next to the alien symbols. The letters spelled out words in English. "Earth Defense Force," Jake read aloud. "Serial number 7742 Alpha." The four humans stared at the wall in stunned silence. Lisa was the first to speak. "That's impossible. Humans have never been to this planet before. We're the first ones to travel this far from Earth." But there it was, carved into the wall in clear English letters. Jake felt his world beginning to shift. Everything they thought they knew about human history was suddenly in question. "Keep looking," he ordered. "If there's one human marking here, there might be more." They spent the next several hours searching the facility. What they found changed everything. In chamber after chamber, they discovered human technology mixed with the alien devices. Computer terminals with English keyboards, tools designed for human hands, even a section that looked like it had been used as living quarters, with furniture sized for human bodies. The most disturbing discovery came when Lisa found a storage room filled with sealed containers. Inside the containers were personal items that were clearly human in origin. Photos of people who looked exactly like modern humans. Books written in English. Even a child's toy that could have come from any Earth store. "These items are old," Lisa said, her voice shaking. "Really old. My scanner says they're at least 500,000 years old." Jake picked up one of the photographs. It showed a family standing in front of what looked like a spaceship. The man wore a uniform similar to their own Earth Space Navy uniforms. The woman and children were smiling at the camera. "This doesn't make sense," Tyler said. "Humans weren't even close to space travel 500,000 years ago. We are still living in caves." "Maybe we weren't," Maya said quietly. "Maybe everything we think we know about human history is wrong." Jake looked around the chamber at all the evidence surrounding them. Human technology that was older than human civilization. A facility that showed humans had been traveling between stars when they supposedly hadn't even invented the wheel. "We need to get back to the ship," he said. "We need to study all of this more carefully, and we need to contact Earth." As they prepared to leave the facility, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that they had stumbled onto something much bigger than just ancient ruins. The human items they had found weren't just old. They were impossible. They suggested that humans had once been far more advanced than anyone imagined. But if that was true, what had happened to that ancient human civilization? And why had all record of it been lost? The questions followed them back to their shuttle and up to the Defiance. As Jake looked down at the planet from orbit, he realized that their mission had suddenly become much more complicated. They had come looking for aliens, but instead they had found evidence that humans themselves might be the aliens they were searching for. The discovery would change everything. But first, they needed to understand what they had really found in those ancient chambers. And they needed to figure out why humanity had forgotten its own past. Lisa Parker had not slept in 2 days. She sat in the science lab aboard the Defiance, surrounded by the artifacts they had brought up from the planet. Her eyes were red from staring at computer screens, but she could not stop working. The secrets hidden in these ancient devices were too important to ignore. "The translation program is making progress," she told Jake when he entered the lab. "These symbols aren't random. They follow patterns, just like any language." Jake pulled up a chair beside her. "What have you found?" Lisa pointed to the main screen, where alien symbols scrolled past in neat rows. "The computer has identified over 3,000 different symbols. But here's the strange part. About 20% of them have human equivalents mixed in. Human equivalents? Letters, numbers, even some words in English. It's like whoever built this facility was using both human and alien languages at the same time. Lisa rubbed her tired eyes. I've managed to translate some basic sections. She brought up a new screen filled with text. This appears to be some kind of historical record. It talks about something called the Galactic Council. Jake leaned forward. What's the Galactic Council? From what I can understand, it was a group of different alien species that worked together to govern this part of the galaxy. There were 12 different species in total. Lisa scrolled through more translated text. And Jake, according to these records, humans were one of them. The commander felt his stomach drop. That's impossible. I thought so too. But look at this. Lisa brought up what appeared to be a membership roster. Species number 7 is listed as humans of the eye. Terra system. Terra is the Latin name for Earth. Jake stared at the screen. How old are these records? Based on the radioactive decay in the storage crystals, I'd estimate around 500,000 years old. The same age as the human artifacts we found. Maya Rodriguez entered the lab, carrying a cup of coffee and looking as tired as Lisa. I've been monitoring. Communications from Earth. No word back yet about our discovery. It'll take time for our message to reach them, Jake said. We're too far away for real-time communication. Commander, there's something else, Lisa said. I've been trying to access what looks like personal files in the database. Most of them are corrupted, but I managed to recover some entries that appear to be written by humans. She opened a new file on the screen. The text was in English, though. The words were faded and hard to read. This entry is dated about 500,000 years ago. It's written by someone named Captain Alex Turner. He was apparently a human representative to the Galactic Council. Lisa read from the screen. The peace talks with the Zephyrian Collective went better than expected. Their hive mind structure makes them difficult to negotiate with, but they seem willing to accept our proposal for mining rights in the Outer Rim territories. Zephyrian Collective? Jake asked. That's one of the alien species mentioned in the Council records. They're described as an insectoid race with a hive mind intelligence. Lisa scrolled down, but listened to this next entry. She read again. Admiral. Karen Wells reports that the Vorthek Empire is becoming more aggressive in their expansion. They've been building warships in secret and ignoring the Council's weapons treaties. Some of the other species are getting nervous. Jake felt a chill. This sounds like humans were involved in some kind of interstellar politics. It gets worse, Lisa said. Look at this entry from a few weeks later. The text on the screen was harder to read, as if it had been written in a hurry. Emergency Council meeting called. The Vorthek and Zephyrians are demanding that humans withdraw from the Outer Rim systems. They claim we're expanding too fast and taking too much territory. Captain Turner thinks it's just jealousy, but I'm not so sure. Maya set down her coffee cup. It sounds like there was tension between humans and the other species. More than tension, Lisa said. The final entries are really disturbing. She opened another file. This one was written in a shaky hand, with many words crossed out and corrected. This is from someone named Dr. Nathan Cross. He was apparently working at this facility. Lisa's voice grew quiet as she read. A847 of the siege. The facility is still hidden, but I don't know how much longer we can stay safe. The other species have turned against us completely. They're hunting down every human they can find. Jake stood up and began pacing. Siege? Cross mentions something. He calls the Great Cleansing. According to his notes, the other 11 species in the Galactic Council joined together to attack humanity. All 11 of them? Every single one? They coordinated their assault across the entire galaxy. Lisa brought up more files. Cross writes about human colonies being destroyed, ships being hunted down, entire worlds being wiped out. The lab fell silent as the three humans absorbed this information. Maya spoke first. If this is true, then humans weren't just members of some galactic government. We were advanced enough to have colonies on other worlds, to travel between stars, to negotiate with alien species. And then something went wrong, Jake said. Something that turned every other species against us. Lisa nodded. According to Cross's notes, the attack was planned for months. The other species worked together to eliminate what they saw as the human threat. But why? Jake asked. What made them so afraid of humans? I'm still trying to translate those sections, Lisa said. But from what I can understand, it had something to do with how fast humans were expanding and how good they were at making alliances with other species. She opened another file. Look at this entry from Captain Turner, written just before the attacks began. The text was clear and confident. The Andromedans have agreed to our proposal for joint exploration of the Magellanic Clouds. With their support, we'll be able to establish colonies in 3 new galaxies within the next century. The future has never looked brighter for humanity. They were expanding into other galaxies, Maya whispered. And the other species didn't like it, Lisa added. Cross mentions that the Vorthic Empire and the Zephyrian Collective were the leaders of the conspiracy. They convinced the other species that humans were becoming too powerful. Jake stopped pacing. What happened to the humans who survived the attacks? Lisa's expression grew dark. That's the worst part. Cross writes about something called the Memory Project. The surviving humans weren't just killed, they were captured. She opened the final file they had been able to translate. Cross's handwriting was barely legible, as if he had been writing in the dark. The bastards have found a way to erase memories. They're taking the captured humans and wiping their minds clean. No memory of space travel, no memory of the Council, no memory of our technology. They're going to dump them on some primitive world and let them start over. Earth, Jake said quietly. Earth, Lisa confirmed. Cross's last entry mentions that the survivors were being relocated to the 3rd planet in the Sol system. That's Earth. The implications hit all 3 of them at once. The humans living on Earth weren't the original inhabitants of the planet. They were the survivors of an ancient galactic war, their memories wiped clean, their technology destroyed, their entire civilization erased. We're not exploring space for the first time, Maya said. We're returning to it. And we're not alone out here, Jake added. Some of those alien species that attacked us 500,000 years ago might still be out there. Lisa saved the translated files and leaned back in her chair. There's more data in these storage crystals. Enough to keep us busy for months. But Jake, we need to be careful about how we handle this information. What do you mean? If the other species thought humans were dangerous 500,000 years ago, what are they going to think when they find out we're back in space? And this time, we might be angry about what they did to us. Jake looked at the ancient human artifacts scattered around the lab. Each one represented a piece of humanity's forgotten past. A past that had been stolen from them by species that had feared human potential. Keep working on the translations, he told Lisa. I want to know everything. What happened to our people? Who was responsible? And what we can do about it. As he left the lab, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that their discovery was about to change everything. Humanity had been betrayed once. Before, the question was whether they would be strong enough to face that betrayal again. The data crystals held secrets that made Jake Morrison's blood run cold. For 3 days, Lisa Parker had worked around the clock to unlock more of the ancient records. What she found painted a picture of betrayal so complete and cruel that it was hard to believe. I've translated the main historical files, Lisa announced as the senior crew gathered in the briefing room. The story they tell is worse than we imagined. She activated the main screen, showing a timeline of events from 500,000 years ago. The betrayal wasn't sudden. It was planned for over 2 years. Tyler Johnson shifted uncomfortably in his seat. 2 years? The other species in the Galactic Council were meeting in secret, discussing what they called the human problem. They were afraid that humans were becoming too powerful and too influential. Maya Rodriguez studied the timeline. What made them so afraid? According to these records, humans had a talent for making friends with other species. We were natural diplomats and negotiators. In just a few centuries, we had formed alliances with species that had been enemies for thousands of years. Lisa brought up another screen showing a map of the galaxy. Humans had also expanded faster than any other species in Council history. We had colonies in 17 different star systems, and were planning to explore other galaxies. That doesn't sound like a bad thing, Tyler said. It wasn't, from the human perspective. But the other species saw it as a threat. They thought humans were trying to take over the galaxy. Jake had been quiet during the briefing, but now he spoke. Up, tell them about the summit. Lisa's expression grew grim. The final betrayal happened during something called the Peace Summit of Nexus Prime. It was supposed to be a celebration of 500 years of galactic cooperation. She showed them images recovered from the data crystals. The pictures showed a beautiful world with crystal cities and floating platforms. Thousands of beings from different species walked together in harmony. Admiral Karen Wells led the human delegation to the summit. She brought 50 ships and over 10,000 people, including families and children. It was meant to be a celebration, so they brought their wives and husbands and kids. The next image showed a massive space station orbiting the planet. The summit was held on the Nexus Prime orbital platform. Every species in the Council sent their best representatives. Jake knew what was coming next, but it still hurt to hear it. On the third day of the summit, during the main ceremony, the other species attacked. They had hidden weapons throughout the station and ships in nearby asteroid fields. The humans never saw it coming. Lisa's voice grew quiet. The attack was coordinated perfectly. While the humans were attending the peace ceremony, the other species destroyed every human ship in the system. Admiral Wells and her entire fleet were wiped out in less than an hour. The briefing room fell silent. Maya was the first to speak. They used the peace summit to murder 10,000 people? It gets worse, Lisa said. The attack on Nexus Prime was just the beginning. While the human leadership was being killed, the other species launched coordinated attacks on every human colony in the galaxy. She showed them a new screen filled with names and dates. Colony after colony was destroyed. The aliens used something called bioweapons that targeted human DNA specifically. Entire worlds were wiped out in days. Tyler stared at the list of destroyed colonies. How many people died? Based on the population records, approximately 43 million humans were killed in the first week of attacks. The survivors were hunted down systematically. Jake clenched his fists. What about the humans who worked at the summit or on the colonies? Some escaped the initial attacks. There were merchant ships, exploration vessels, and research stations scattered throughout the galaxy. They tried to fight back or find places to hide. Lisa opened a new file. This is a log entry from Captain Roy Stevens. He was commanding a cargo ship when the attacks began. She read from the screen. Day 12 since the betrayal. We've lost contact with all human settlements. The aliens are hunting us with everything. They have. My crew is mostly families, wives, children, elderly people. We're not fighters, but we're going to have to become fighters if we want to survive. Did any of them make it? Maya asked. Some did for a while. Stevens managed to evade. Capture for almost 6 months. But the aliens had advantages. They knew the galaxy better. They had more ships, and they were working together. Lisa showed them another log entry, this one from a woman named Helen Burke, who had been running a research station. We're the last humans in the Vega system. The aliens found our station yesterday, but we managed to escape in the shuttle. There are 12 of us left, 3 families with children. We're heading for the outer rim, hoping to find somewhere to hide. The entries painted a picture of desperation and terror. Small groups of humans running from an entire galaxy that wanted them dead. Families separated, children orphaned, survivors forced to watch as their entire species was hunted to extinction. The worst part, Lisa continued, is what happened to the humans who were captured alive. She opened a new section of files. The aliens didn't just want to kill humans. They wanted to make sure we could never threaten them again. So they developed something called the Memory Extraction Protocol. Memory extraction? Jake asked. Advanced brain surgery combined with genetic manipulation. They could completely erase a person's memories and knowledge while leaving them physically intact. Lisa showed them medical records that made Jake's stomach turn. They captured thousands of humans and wiped their minds clean. No memory of space travel, no memory of advanced technology, no memory of their families or their civilization. Why not just kill them? Tyler asked. Because some of the alien species thought complete genocide was too extreme. They wanted to remove the threat without completely destroying the human race. Maya stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the stars. So they turned us into primitive savages and dumped us on Earth. Not just dumped, Lisa corrected. A carefully selected Earth because it was similar to the human homeworld. They modified the atmosphere and planted Earth with species that could support human life. She showed them scientific data about Earth's ecosystem. Many of the plants and animals on Earth aren't native to the planet. They were brought there by the aliens to create a suitable environment for the mind-wiped humans. Jake felt sick. They turned Earth into a prison and a nursery. They wanted to make sure the surviving humans could live and reproduce. But they also wanted to make sure we could never rediscover space travel. Lisa opened one final file. This is from Dr. Nathan Cross, the human scientist who built this facility. He was one of the few humans who avoided capture. Cross's final log entry was heartbreaking. I've watched the aliens load the last group of survivors onto transport ships. My wife and daughter are among them. They don't remember me anymore. The memory extraction saw to that. In a few hours, they'll be on Earth, starting new lives with no knowledge of what they've lost. The entry continued. The aliens think they've won. They've destroyed our civilization, murdered our people, and condemned the survivors to live as primitives. But they're wrong. I've hidden our technology, our history, our knowledge. Someday, humans will return to the stars. And when they do, they'll learn the truth about what happened to us. The briefing room was silent for a long moment. Finally, Jake spoke. Cross built this facility to preserve the truth. He spent his last years gathering evidence, storing data, and hiding technology. He knew that eventually, humans would develop space travel again and start exploring the galaxy. And he wanted us to know what really happened, Maya said. He wanted us to know that we weren't primitive beings taking our first steps into space. We were the survivors of a great civilization, returning to reclaim what was stolen from us. Jake looked around the room at his crew. The question is, what do we do with this information? Tyler spoke first. We have to tell Earth. Humanity deserves to know the truth about their past. And we need to be careful, Maya added. If some of those alien species are still out there, they might not be happy to learn that humans are back in space. Lisa nodded. According to Cross's records, at least 3 of the original alien species survived the chaos that followed the betrayal. The Vorthic Empire, the Zephyrian Collective, and something called the Phantom Syndicate. Are they still active? Jake asked. I don't know. But if they are, and if they find out about Earth's expansion into space, they might try to finish what they started 500,000 years ago. Jake stood up and walked to the front of the room. And we need to be ready for them. We need to unlock the technology cross hid here, and we need to make sure humanity is prepared to defend itself. He looked at each of his crew members. This changes everything. We're not just explorers anymore. We're the advance guard of a species that's coming home. The weight of their discovery settled on all of them. They had set out to explore new worlds, and instead had found evidence of humanity's greatest tragedy. But they had also found something else. Proof that humans had once been mighty, that they had stood as equals among the stars, and that they had the potential to do so again. The betrayal had been cruel and complete, but it had not been permanent. Humanity was returning to space, and this time they would be ready for whatever waited foe. The deeper Lisa Parker dug into the ancient records, the more she realized that the aliens' betrayal of humanity had been their own undoing. The data crystals contained not just the story of humanity's fall, but the complete history of what happened. To the Galactic Council afterward, the aliens made a terrible mistake, Lisa told Jake as they reviewed the new translations. They thought removing humans would make the galaxy more stable. Instead, it tore everything apart. Jake studied the timeline she had assembled. How long did the council last after the betrayal? Less than 300 years? By the time the dust settled, 11 of the 12 original species were either extinct or scattered across the galaxy as refugees. The records painted a picture of chaos that began almost immediately after the human genocide. Without human diplomats to mediate disputes, the remaining species quickly turned on each other. Humans were apparently the peacekeepers, Lisa explained. We had a talent for finding solutions that made everyone happy. When we were removed from the equation, old rivalries surfaced. The first major conflict erupted just 50 years after the betrayal. The Vorthic Empire, drunk on their success against humanity, decided to expand their territory by attacking their former allies in the Galactic Council. The Vorthic were reptilian beings, very aggressive and territorial, Lisa read from the species profiles. They had been held in check by human-negotiated treaties. With those treaties gone, they started grabbing systems that belonged to other species. The Zephyrian Collective, the insectoid hive mind that had helped plan the human genocide, tried to stop the Vorthic expansion. But without human mediation, negotiations broke down quickly. The insects and the reptiles went to war, Lisa continued. But this wasn't like the careful, limited conflicts from when humans were around. This was total war. The records showed battles that consumed entire star systems. The Vorthic used planet-killing weapons that had been banned under human-negotiated treaties. The Zephyrians responded by releasing bioweapons that wiped out all life on Vorthic colony worlds. Within 100 years, both species had nearly destroyed each other, Lisa said. The Vorthic Empire collapsed when their homeworld was infected with a Zephyrian plague. The Zephyrians lost their hive mind when the Vorthic destroyed their queen worlds. But the war between the two most powerful species created a power vacuum that the other council members rushed to fill. Species that had been allies for thousands of years suddenly found themselves competing for the same resources. The Andromedans tried to take control of the council, Lisa explained. They were an ancient species, very proud and very sure of their superiority. They thought they could replace humans as the galaxy's leaders. The Andromedans were energy beings who lived for thousands of years. They had been among the first to join the Galactic Council and considered themselves the wisest of all species. But wisdom and leadership are different things, Lisa noted. The Andromedans were good at giving advice, but they were terrible at making the hard decisions that leaders have to make. When food shortages hit several systems due to the ongoing wars, the Andromedans couldn't decide how to distribute aid. When trade routes were disrupted by Vorthic raiders, they spent months debating the best response. When refugee populations needed new homes, the Andromedans formed committees to study the problem. The other species got tired of waiting for decisions, Lisa said. They started handling problems themselves, which led to more conflicts. The records showed a cascade of failures. The Rigellian Federation broke away from the Council when the Andromedans refused to help them fight off Vorthic attacks. The Centauri. Republic dissolved into civil war when different factions chose different sides in the galactic conflicts. It was like pulling one thread and having the whole fabric fall apart, Lisa observed. Humans had been the thread holding everything together. Jake was particularly interested in the records about Dr. Nathan Cross, the human scientist who had built the hidden facility. Cross had not just preserved human history. He had documented the collapse of the galactic civilization. Cross was brilliant, Lisa said, showing Jake some of the scientist's personal logs. He predicted exactly what would happen to the galaxy after humans were eliminated. Cross had written, "The fools think they've solved their problem by removing us. They don't understand that the problem wasn't human expansion. It was their own inability to work together. We were the glue that held their alliance together. Without us, they'll tear each other apart within centuries." The prediction had been accurate. By the time the galactic wars ended, most of the original Council species were gone. The survivors were scattered, weakened, and suspicious of each other. But Cross did more than just predict the collapse, Lisa continued. He spent his final years gathering and preserving human technology. She led Jake to a section of the facility they hadn't fully explored yet. Behind a hidden door, they found chambers filled with devices that looked far more advanced than anything on Earth. "These are incredible," Jake whispered, examining what appeared to be a faster-than-light communication device. "Our best scientists would need decades to understand how this works." Cross collected technology from across the galaxy, Lisa explained. Not just human tech, but devices from all the Council species. He wanted to make sure that when humans returned to space, they would have the tools they needed to defend themselves. The hidden chambers contained weapons that could destroy entire fleets, shields that could protect planets, and engines that could travel between galaxies in days instead of years. He also preserved the locations of hidden bases and supply depots. Lisa added, "There are dozens of facilities like this scattered throughout the galaxy, all waiting for humans to find them." Jake picked up what looked like a small crystal. "What's this?" "Genetic records." Cross preserved the DNA patterns of every human who died in the genocide. He thought that maybe someday humans would be advanced enough to bring them back. The implications were staggering. Not only had humans once been a spacefaring civilization, but they had the potential to become far more advanced than they were now. All the knowledge was waiting for them. "There's something else," Lisa said. Cross didn't just preserve human technology. He also gathered intelligence about the alien species that survived the collapse. She showed Jake files containing detailed information about the remnants of the original Council species. 3 species managed to survive the chaos. They're not as powerful as they once were, but they're still out there. The first was what remained of the Vorthic Empire. Once rulers of hundreds of star systems, they had been reduced to a small fleet of ships that raided isolated worlds for supplies. They're led by someone called General Zarak, Lisa read. He's apparently over 200 years old and still bitter about the collapse of his empire. The second surviving group was a fragment of the Zephyrian collective. Their hive mind had been broken, but some of their ships had escaped to the outer rim of the galaxy. They're trying to rebuild their collective consciousness, Lisa explained. They're led by someone called Hive Queen Visara. She's supposedly been searching for a way to restore their original power. The third group was the most mysterious. Called the Phantom Syndicate, they were apparently survivors from multiple species who had banded together after the collapse. They're not interested in rebuilding the old civilizations, Lisa said. They've become pirates and mercenaries, selling their services to whoever pays the most. Jake studied the intelligence reports. Are they a threat to Earth? Cross thought. So, he wrote that all three groups blame humans for the collapse of galactic civilization. They think that if humans had never existed, the Council would still be strong, and their species would still be powerful. So they still want to destroy humanity? According to Cross's analysis, yes. They've been waiting for humans to return to space, so they can finish what they started. Jake looked around the chamber filled with advanced technology, but Cross prepared for that possibility. He did more than prepare. He left detailed battle plans and strategies for fighting each of the surviving species. He studied their weaknesses and figured out how to defeat them. Lisa opened a file labeled Contingency Plans. Cross believed that when humans returned to space, they would eventually encounter the remnants of the original Council. He wanted to make sure we would be ready. The plans were comprehensive and brutal. Cross had identified the home bases of each surviving group and mapped out strategies for eliminating them completely. He didn't want humanity to make the same mistake twice, Lisa said. Cross believed that showing mercy to species that had committed genocide would only lead to more betrayals. Jake felt uncomfortable reading the detailed attack plans. They called for the complete destruction of the remaining alien civilizations, including their civilian populations. This is genocide, he said quietly. Cross would have called it justice, Lisa replied. He watched his entire species get wiped out. He saw his wife and daughter get their memories erased. He wasn't in a forgiving mood, but there were other files that showed Cross's more thoughtful side. He had also preserved detailed information about dozens of other alien species that had never been part of the Galactic Council. Not all aliens were involved in the betrayal, Lisa explained. 3 weeks had passed since the crew of the Defiance made their shocking discovery. Jake Morrison stood on the bridge, watching the stars and thinking about the message they had sent to Earth. By now, the top leaders of every nation would know the truth about humanity's past. The question was what they would do with that knowledge. Commander, we're receiving an encrypted transmission from Earth, Maya Rodriguez announced from her communications station. Jake's stomach tightened. Put it through. The main screen flickered to life, showing Admiral Patricia Hayes, the head of Earth's Space Command. Her expression was grim. Commander Morrison, your report has been reviewed by the Global Defense Council. What you've discovered changes everything we thought we knew about human history and our place in the galaxy. Jake nodded. Yes, Admiral, the evidence is overwhelming. Humanity was once a major power in galactic politics. And according to your findings, we were betrayed and nearly wiped out by the other species in this Galactic Council. Admiral Hayes leaned forward. Commander, I need you to understand something. 3 days ago, our deep space monitoring stations detected unknown ships entering our solar system. The bridge of the Defiance went silent. Lisa Parker looked up from her science station with alarm. Unknown ships? Jake asked. 6 vessels of alien design, moving slowly toward Earth. They're not responding to our communications, but they haven't shown any hostile actions either. Admiral Hayes paused. Commander, based on your discoveries, do you think these could be survivors from the species that betrayed us? Jake felt his blood run cold. Admiral, Dr. Cross's records identified 3 groups that survived the collapse of the Galactic Council. All of them were described as hostile to humanity. Then we may be facing the same enemy that destroyed our ancestors. Admiral Hayes straightened in her chair. Commander, I'm ordering you to return to Earth immediately. We need you and your team here to help us analyze the situation. Admiral, with respect, There might be a better option, Jake said. The facility we discovered contains advanced weapons and defensive technology. If these aliens are planning another attack, we might be able to use Cross's hidden arsenal to defend Earth. Lisa quickly brought up the inventory they had compiled. Admiral, the technology here is centuries ahead of anything we have on Earth. We found weapons that could destroy entire fleets and shields that could protect planets. Admiral Hayes considered this. How long would it take you to understand and deploy these weapons? Cross left detailed instructions, Lisa replied. The systems are designed to be operated by humans. We could have basic defensive capabilities. Operational within days. Do it, Admiral Hayes ordered. Commander Morrison, you have full authority to use whatever resources you find at that facility. Earth will buy you as much time as possible. But if those alien ships are planning an attack, you may be our only hope. The transmission ended, leaving the crew of the Defiance staring at each other in stunned silence. So it's happening again, Maya said quietly. The aliens are coming back to finish what they started. Maybe, Jake replied. But this time, we're not defenseless. Over the next 48 hours, the crew worked frantically to unlock the weapon systems that Dr. Cross had hidden in the facility. The technology was incredibly advanced, but Cross had designed everything to be intuitive for human operators. He really thought of everything, Lisa marveled as they activated the main defense grid. These weapon platforms can target ships across multiple star systems simultaneously. Tyler Johnson was studying the tactical displays. Commander, according to these readouts, Cross built similar facilities in 12 different locations. If we can activate them all, we could create a defensive network spanning dozens of light years. Do it, Jake ordered. Send activation signals to every facility Cross marked on his maps. One by one, the hidden bases came online. Ancient weapons that had been dormant for 500,000 years began powering up across the galaxy. Jake watched the tactical display as humanity's forgotten arsenal awakened. But they weren't the only ones watching. Maya intercepted alien communications that made Jake's heart race. Commander, I'm picking up transmissions between the alien ships near Earth. I can't translate most of it, but the computer recognizes some of the signal patterns from Cross's database. Which species? Jake asked. Vorthic Empire signatures. Sir, these are the same reptilian aliens that helped plan the original genocide. Jake clenched his fists. The species that had murdered millions of humans was back, probably planning to finish the job they had started 500,000 years ago. They're not just scouting, Maya continued. I'm detecting communication bursts to other locations in the galaxy. They're coordinating with someone. Lisa looked up from her console. Commander, I'm reading massive energy signatures from the edge of the solar system. More ships are arriving. The tactical display showed dozens of new contacts dropping out of faster-than-light travel near Earth. The alien fleet was growing larger by the hour. How many? Jake asked. At least 40 ships so far, with more arriving every few hours, Lisa replied. Commander, this isn't a scouting mission. This is an invasion fleet. Jake made his decision. Activate all weapon systems. Begin charging. The planet killer weapons Cross left us. Sir, those weapons could destroy entire worlds, Tyler warned. The aliens didn't hesitate to use planet killers against our ancestors, Jake replied grimly. Cross was right. Showing mercy to genocidal species only leads to more genocide. As the weapon systems powered up, Jake opened a communication channel to Earth. Admiral Hayes, this is Commander Morrison. We've detected a large alien fleet gathering near Earth. Based on their communications, these are the same species that destroyed the original human civilization. Admiral Hayes appeared on the screen, looking tired and worried. Commander, we've been monitoring their movements. They've positioned themselves just outside our defensive perimeter, but they haven't made any aggressive moves. They're waiting for something, Jake said. According to Cross's records, the Vorthic prefer to gather overwhelming force before attacking. They want to make sure they can eliminate all resistance quickly. How long before your weapons are ready? 6 hours to full power, Lisa reported. But Commander, I'm detecting something else. The alien fleet isn't just Vorthic ships. I'm seeing signatures from Zephyrian vessels and ships that match Cross's description of the Phantom Syndicate. Jake felt a chill. All 3 surviving groups are working together, just like they did 500,000 years ago, Maya added. Admiral Hayes leaned forward. Commander, our scientists have been studying your data about the original betrayal. They think. They know why the aliens are here now. Why? Humanity's expansion into space has been accelerating. We've established colonies on 6 worlds and sent exploration ships to dozens of star systems. The aliens probably think we're about to rediscover our true heritage and seek revenge for what they did to us. They're not wrong, Jake said grimly. No, they're not. But Commander, we have something our ancestors didn't have: advance warning and advanced weapons. If these aliens want to fight, we'll give them one they'll never forget. Jake looked around the bridge at his crew. These people had signed up for a peaceful exploration mission, and instead found themselves preparing for a war that had started before their species even had written language. Admiral, Cross left more than just weapons. He left battle plans and strategies for fighting each of the alien species. We know their weaknesses and their tactics. Then use that knowledge, Commander. Show these aliens that humanity has learned from its past. As Jake prepared for the coming battle, he thought about Dr. Nathan Cross and the final message the scientist had left in his personal files. To the humans who find this facility, you are not the first to walk among the stars, and you will not be the last. Our enemies think they have broken us, but they have only made us stronger. They betrayed us once and scattered us to the winds. But we survived, we rebuilt, and now we have returned. This time, we will not be caught unprepared. This time, we will not show mercy to those who would destroy us. This time, we will make sure that the betrayal of humanity becomes a lesson that echoes through the galaxy for all time. Jake smiled grimly as he gave the order to begin the attack. The aliens had come to Earth expecting to find the same trusting, peaceful humans they had betrayed centuries ago. Instead, they would face the descendants of that betrayal, humans, who had learned hard lessons about the price of mercy and the value of strength. The reckoning that Dr. Cross had planned for 500,000 years was about to begin. And this time, humanity would make sure it was the aliens who paid the price for underestimating the human spirit. The first human weapons fired, streaking across space toward the alien fleet. The Second Galactic War had begun, and this time, humanity intended to win it.